The air hung heavy, with a grim familiarity as I faced the courthouse again. It was a far cry from the whirlwind of accusation and restraining orders that marked my initial foray into reclaiming my father's life from the clutches of my treacherous stepbrother, Shorty. My dad, frail and fading by the hour, had entrusted him with the weighty responsibility of power of attorney during his illness. Shorty, with the cunning of a viper and the morals of a moldy sock, had instead turned his position into a personal ATM, draining Dad's accounts with breathtaking greed. My intervention had been a whirlwind of righteous fury. I'd secured a restraining order to keep Shorty at bay, filed charges to hold him accountable, and wrestled control of my father's care from his slimy grasp. In the process, I'd even administered a bit of poetic justice, though details remained firmly under wraps. However, the heady satisfaction of victory had a bitter aftertaste. My first cousin, doubling as the court's victim's advocate, because in our small town, family ties were as tangled as kudzu, had delivered a sobering warning. Bringing Shorty to trial would be a grueling marathon, not a sprint. And she was right. Months had bled into a year, court dates an endless march on a calendar marked by my father's dwindling strength. The evidence was irrefutable, yet the wheels of justice ground with glacial indifference. Frustration gnawed at me, the injustice of festering wound. Yet for Dad, I persevered. Each visit to the sterile hospital room, each shared laugh and whispered memory fueled my resolve. He deserved justice, even if it came served lukewarm and years overdue. Shorty's online existence became my own morbid zoological garden. I wasn't a voyeur, not quite, but his Facebook updates and garish vacation photos fueled a simmering cocktail of anger and suspicion. Each pixel was a clue, each tagged location a potential breach of his bail conditions. He posted a triumphant selfie from a beach in Florida, the sun glinting off a gold necklace that looked suspiciously familiar. My finger hovered over the call button, the court number memorized long ago like a prayer against injustice. Then came the news. A job as a truck driver. My gut clenched. His bail restricted him to our state, the shackles meant to confine his movements and deter further pilfering of my father's dwindling estate. But truckers lived on asphalt arteries, their homes the cabs of roaring diesel beasts. Was each interstate highway a loophole? Was each state line crossed a defiant middle finger to the flimsy piece of paper holding him accountable? Again, my finger hovered over the phone, the temptation to alert the court, a siren song of righteous indignation. But I knew the dance. Each call was a bureaucratic hurdle. Each report filed a drop in the ocean of legal paperwork, and every time the answer would be the same. Investigate, wait, see. My frustration gnawed at me, but I swallowed it down. Justice might be glacial, but my resolve was volcanic. For Dad, I'd navigate the maze of legalese and technicalities, ensuring Shorty's every digital footprint landed under the harsh spotlight of scrutiny. The phone call sliced through the stereo silence of my father's hospital room. It was the same voice, the one that had navigated me through the legal labyrinth after Shorty's betrayal, my first cousin doubling as the court's victim's advocate. The trial was finally happening, a date inked onto the calendar 6 months after I'd sworn to see justice served. But now, a stark choice loomed, its weight palpable in the hushed room. Felony elder abuse. The words hung heavy in the air, punctuated by the rhythmic wheeze of my father's oxygen machine. 15 years. Imprisonment, a concrete cage for the man who'd plundered my father's life savings with the callousness of a vulture. Retribution, swift and final. Yet the allure of vengeance was tainted by a bitter truth. Restitution, the return of what Shorty had stolen, would likely vanish into the prison's abyss. My father, frail and fading, deserved more than empty promises of financial recovery. Work release. The alternative resonated like a discordant note, a bittersweet blend of justice and leniency. Shorty, condemned to toil, his wages clawed back to mend the financial wounds he'd inflicted. Restitution, tangible recompense, a chance to rebuild what he'd shattered. But it came at a cost, his freedom, albeit circumscribed. Would the indignity of his labor serve as sufficient penance? Would it appease the simmering rage that gnawed at my insides? The advocate's voice, a lifeline in the swirling sea of doubt, echoed in my ears. We want to know what the family wants. I looked at my father, his weathered face etched with pain and the ghost of betrayal. His strength, a flickering candle flame, deserved solace, not just retribution. Yet the sting of injustice festered, demanding its pound of flesh. That night, the sterile white walls of the hospital became a confessional booth. I wrestled with the ghosts of the past, with the anger that festered like a tumor, with the yearning for a peace that felt impossible. In the hushed hours, a decision clawed its way into the light, tentative yet resolute. It was a choice woven from grief, from love, and from the stark pragmatism of a life ravaged by betrayal. The next morning, I dialed the familiar number, my voice betraying the turmoil within. The answer came promptly, laced with understanding. And as the words tumbled out, I knew with a heavy heart that vengeance had to yield to a different kind of justice, one carved from the cold stone of reality and the fierce love for a father on the brink of forever. Shorty's fate hovered in my grasp, a writhing marionette controlled by the strings of my decision. In that moment, I tasted the intoxicating metallic tang of power, the heady elixir of revenge simmering on the burner of my righteous anger. What kind of deity did I want to be? A vengeful thunder god, unleashing the full fury of justice upon him. Or a calculating architect of redemption, shaping his punishment with the cold precision of a gem cutter. The numbers echoed in my mind, a grim tally of potential outcomes. 15 years, the harshest sentence, yet halved by time served and parole. 7 years, a significant chunk of his life, stolen in exchange for his crimes. But then there was restitution, a glacial trickle of stolen funds returning to my father's depleted coffers. Years it would take, perhaps longer, and within me, a twisted pleasure bloomed. Each sweat-glistened dollar clawed back from Shorty's toil felt like a barb embedded in his conscience. The image of him laboring under the sun's harsh glare, every calloused hand scrape a tiny testament to his guilt, fueled a dark amusement. His freedom, though circumscribed, would be a cage of perpetual reminder, his every paycheck a branded offering on the altar of my justice. The phone call came as I savored this macabre vision. My cousin, the court's advocate, her voice a neutral conduit for the law's ironclad verdict. Supervised release and restitution, the deal brokered, the contract signed. In that instant, the intoxicating fumes of vengeance dissipated, replaced by a stark, sobering truth. Justice had been served, yes, but it tasted not of sweet retribution, but of the bittersweet alloy of pragmatism and a gnawing, hollow ache. The gavel dropped, a thud reverberating through the sterile courtroom. Shorty, slouched in his chair, barely flinched. Guilty. Felony elder exploitation, first degree. The air, thick with tension, seemed to exhale all at once. The judge's pronouncement wasn't the slam-dunk victory I'd craved. 15 years suspended hung in the balance like a tarnished crown. No bars, no concrete cell to cage the man who'd plundered my father's life. Instead, a tangled web of restrictions. 2 years of felony work supervision, a leash of daily check-ins, and near-constant drug tests. Parole's watchful eye, a grim shadow over his every move. Then the long tether of probation stretching 5 years into the distant horizon. The judge's stern gaze promised regular scrutiny, ensuring the flow of restitution, a trickle of stolen treasure back into my father's depleted coffers. It wasn't the fiery furnace of punishment I'd envisioned, but a slow-burning ember of accountability. His freedom, a gilded cage, shackled by the weight of his actions. Each call to his parole officer, a whispered echo of remorse. Each drop of sweat in his supervised labor, a penance paid for his greed. His life forever intertwined with the consequences of his betrayal, a constant reminder etched into his very existence. Victory tasted bittersweet. No triumphant clang of a prison door, just the quiet simmer of justice served, not with a bang, but with a methodical, measured hand. In the end, revenge was a hollow echo, its siren song replaced by the sober certainty of a reckoning, however incomplete. And as I looked at Shorty, his face a mask of forced defiance, I realized that some punishments are far more excruciating than bars, the chains of regret forged in the fires of one's own choices. He may have avoided the slam of a prison door, but the judge's gavel echoed with a sentence that promised a different kind of confinement. A 130,000 $539.39 debt, a colossal albatross draped around his neck. Each month, a measly $300 chipped away at the mountain, a Sisyphean task stretching across 36 interminable years. My gamble, the bitter choice of work release over prison, had paid off. I wouldn't see him locked away, his remorse hidden behind bars. Instead, I'd watch him squirm in the shackles of his own debt, each missed payment a potential trip back to the concrete abyss. This wasn't vengeance, not quite. It was a slow, deliberate dance of reclamation, a savoring of every hard-earned cent clawed back from his ill-gotten gains. Imagine it. 36 years of January 1sts, each one a grim reminder of his transgression. The crisp bills, crisp with the faint echo of my father's stolen savings, deposited into my account, a testament to Shorty's Sisyphean struggle. His face, etched with the lines of time and regret, a daily mirror reflecting the consequences of his greed. This wasn't the fiery inferno of retribution I'd craved, but a slow, cold burn of justice. His freedom, a barbed wire fence he couldn't escape, the weight of his debt, a constant anchor dragging him down. And I, the ever-present warden, overseeing his financial purgatory, a silent reaper harvesting the fruits of his poisoned labor. It wasn't perfect, not the fairy tale ending where the villain gets his just desserts, but in the quiet hum of the courtroom, a different kind of justice resonated. Not the slam of a gavel, but the clink of coins, each one a tiny hammer blow chipping away at the edifice of his deceit. And in the long, arduous process of reclamation, I found a grim satisfaction, a cold comfort in the knowledge that Shorty's gilded cage had just shrunk a little bit more. I understand your desire to close this chapter and move forward. Justice has been served, albeit not in the form you might have initially envisioned. The tangled web of betrayal and its resolution has undoubtedly been a complex and emotionally draining journey. Instead of framing it as revenge, perhaps consider acknowledging the arduous legal process you navigated, the unwavering resilience you demonstrated, and the ultimate restoration of financial justice for your father. It was a triumph of persistence and a testament to your unwavering love and dedication. As for the holidays, while closure offers a certain serenity, the emotional residue of such an experience can linger. Give yourself time and space to process it all. Allow yourself to grieve the losses inflicted, celebrate the victories achieved, and embrace the healing that lies ahead. Remember, you have not walked this path alone. The support of loved ones and the guidance of legal professionals have been instrumental in reaching this point. Lean on them, share your reflections, and allow yourself to be comforted by their presence. The holidays, despite their festive facade, can be a challenging time for those grappling with unresolved emotions. Be kind to yourself, prioritize self-care, and engage in activities that bring you solace and joy. Remember, true healing, much like justice, may not arrive instantly, but unfolds with time and gentle self-compassion. So, instead of viewing this as the end of a revenge story, let it be a turning point. A chapter where you reclaimed control, secured justice, and paved the way for healing and new beginnings. Embrace the peace that comes with closure, the strength you've garnered from the journey, and allow yourself to step into the next chapter with newfound clarity and a lighter heart. Wishing you a season filled with compassion for yourself and the strength to embrace the future with renewed hope. Please remember, you are not alone. If you ever need someone to talk to, I am always here to listen without judgment.